The November rain painted streaks across the tall windows of the Metropolitan Museum's conservation lab. Emma Collins adjusted her magnifying glasses and leaned closer to the 18th century portrait she was restoring, her steady hands working with practiced precision. At 32, she had become invisible in the best possible way. People noticed her work, never her. "Emma, Director Morrison wants to see you," called out Jennifer, her colleague, from across the lab. Emma's heart skipped. Direct summons from the director were rare. She removed her protective gear, smoothed down her plain grey cardigan, and made her way through the museum's labyrinthine corridors. The director's office overlooked Fifth Avenue, a space filled with art books and the scent of old paper. "Miss Collins, please sit," Director Morrison said, gesturing to a leather chair. "I have an extraordinary opportunity for you." Emma sat, her hands folded tightly in her lap. "We've been commissioned by Alexander Ashford, the Duke of Thornbury, to restore his family's private collection. 10 pieces, all significant. He's relocated to New York and wants them restored here, in his residence. You'd work on site for the next 3 months. Emma's mind raced. Working outside the museum's protective environment was unusual. Why me? "Your reputation precedes you. The Duke specifically requested our best conservator. That's you, Emma. Your attention to detail is unmatched." The next morning, Emma stood before a towering building on the Upper East Side, her restoration supplies in carefully packed cases. The doorman, an older gentleman with kind eyes, directed her to the penthouse. The private elevator ascended smoothly, and when the doors opened, Emma stepped into a world she had only seen in magazines. The penthouse was breathtaking. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased Central Park's autumn glory, while carefully curated art pieces adorned cream-colored walls. But Emma's attention fixed on the paintings arranged in a climate-controlled room to her left. "Ms. Collins, I presume." She turned. Alexander Ashford stood in the doorway, and Emma immediately understood why gossip magazines called him Manhattan's most eligible bachelor. Tall, with dark hair slightly disheveled. Wearing a simple white shirt and jeans, he looked more like a graduate student than nobility. "Your Grace," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "Please, Alexander. Your Grace makes me feel like I'm still trapped in Thornbury Hall." He smiled, and something in his expression was genuinely warm. "I appreciate you coming here. These pieces mean everything to my family, and I've heard you're the best." Emma felt heat rise to her cheeks. "I'll do my absolute best." Alexander showed her the collection. Portraits of his ancestors, landscape paintings of the English countryside, and one particularly damaged piece. A portrait of a young woman with enigmatic eyes. "This one's my favorite," Alexander said softly, standing beside Emma. "My great-great-grandmother, Catherine. Family legend says she married my great-great-grandfather not for his title, but because he saw her value when everyone else overlooked her. She was a scholar, a writer, completely unconventional for her time." Emma studied the painting with professional intensity, noting the cracked varnish and paint loss. But something in Catherine's painted gaze held her attention, a quiet confidence, a sense of self-possession. "She's beautiful," Emma murmured. "Not by conventional standards of her time," Alexander replied. "But my great-great-grandfather wrote in his journals that her inner light made her the most beautiful woman he'd ever known. Took him 2 years to convince her to marry him." Emma set up her workspace in the adjacent room, which Alexander had converted into a temporary conservation studio. As she unpacked her tools, she felt his presence in the doorway. "I'll leave you to work. But Emma, may I watch sometimes? I've always been fascinated by restoration." She nodded, surprised by his genuine interest. Over the first week, Emma fell into a rhythm. She arrived each morning at 8, worked methodically through each piece, documenting every step. Alexander would appear periodically, sitting quietly, watching her work with intense focus. Unlike most clients who saw only the finished product, he asked thoughtful questions about technique, materials, and her decision-making process. "Why do you choose that particular solvent?" he asked one afternoon as Emma worked on cleaning centuries of grime from a landscape painting. "Each painting requires different treatment," Emma explained, not looking up from her work. "The original artist used specific materials. I need to honor their choices while removing only what shouldn't be there. It's like listening to what the painting tells you. You speak about them like they're alive. In a way, they are. Each one carries the artist's vision, their moment in time. My job is to help that vision speak clearly again." Alexander leaned forward. "That's poetry, Emma." She glanced at him, surprised. No one had ever called her work poetic. "It's just conservation." "No," he said thoughtfully. "It's resurrection." The second week brought an unexpected rhythm to Emma's days. Alexander began bringing her coffee each morning, not fancy lattes, but simple black coffee exactly as she liked it. She never remembered telling him her preference, but he had noticed. "How does someone become a conservator?" Alexander asked one rainy afternoon, settling into the chair across from her workspace. He'd clearly finished his own work early. She'd learned he consulted for international investment firms, helping wealthy clients invest in art. Emma continued her careful application of adhesive to a flaking paint section. "I studied art history and chemistry. Most people thought it was an odd combination." "Sounds perfect for this work." "My parents wanted me to be a doctor or lawyer. Something practical." She smiled slightly. "They still don't quite understand what I do." "Do you care?" The question was gentle, curious. Emma paused, really considering. "I used to. I spent years trying to make them proud, make everyone proud. Somewhere along the way, I forgot to ask if I was proud of myself." Alexander was quiet for a moment. "I understand that more than you know. I have a brother who handles the estate duties back in England now, but for years I was drowning in expectations. Come to these events, marry appropriately, produce heirs, maintain tradition. I felt like a portrait hanging on a wall, looked at, but never really seen." Emma glanced at him. In the afternoon light, he looked tired. "Is that why you came to New York?" "Partially. Also because I wanted to do something meaningful with my life. The title is an accident of birth. I wanted to choose my own path." He leaned back. "My family was horrified. Still is, actually. My mother calls weekly to inform me of suitable matches she's arranging. Arranged marriages still happen." Emma couldn't hide her surprise. Alexander laughed. "In aristocratic circles, arranged is just dressed up as highly encouraged. They find reasons for me to meet appropriate ladies, charity events, gallery openings, dinner parties. It's exhausting." "What makes someone appropriate?" Emma asked, then immediately regretted the personal question. "Sorry, that's none of my business." "No, it's fine. Appropriate means proper lineage, correct social training, ability to manage estates and staff, comfort with public appearances, a perfect aristocratic wife." Sounds more like a job description than a relationship. "Exactly." Alexander met her eyes. "That's exactly what it is. No one asks about compatibility, shared interests, or genuine connection. It's about maintaining an image." Emma returned to her work, but her mind churned. She thought about her own life, how she'd also been living according to others' expectations, just in different ways. She dressed plainly to be taken seriously. She never spoke up in meetings. She made herself small, invisible, because she'd learned that was safer. "Can I ask you something?" Alexander's voice pulled her from her thoughts. "Of course." "Why do you hide?" Emma's hand stilled. "What do you mean?" "You're brilliant at what you do. I've watched you work, heard you explain your process. You have this incredible passion and knowledge, but you make yourself small. Even the way you dress, it's like you're trying to disappear." Emma felt exposed. No one had ever called her on this. "I'm not hiding. This is just who I am." "Is it?" Alexander's voice was gentle, not challenging. "Or is it who you learned to be?" The question hung in the air. Emma carefully set down her tools, her hands trembling slightly. "When you're not conventionally pretty, not socially graceful, not the kind of woman people notice, you learn to make your work speak for you. It's easier. Emma, look at me." She did, reluctantly. "You are absolutely worth noticing. Your mind, your talent, the way your whole face changes when you talk about art, that's captivating, but I don't think you see it." Emma's eyes filled with unexpected tears. She blinked them back. "You don't know me." "Not yet, but I'd like to." The following days shifted something between them. Their conversations deepened. Alexander shared stories about growing up in Thornbury Hall, the pressure of aristocratic expectations, his struggle to forge his own identity. Emma found herself opening up about her childhood in a small Ohio town, her escape to New York, her years of making herself invisible. One evening, as Emma was packing up her supplies, Alexander appeared with takeout from a nearby Italian restaurant. "You've been here for 11 hours. Have dinner with me." "I should go home." "Should or want to?" Emma smiled despite herself. "You're persistent. I prefer hopeful." They ate at the long dining table overlooking the city lights. Alexander asked about her favorite artists, her dream projects, what she would do if she could restore any painting in the world. Emma answered, surprised by how easy conversation felt. "The Ghent altarpiece," she said. "I know it's been restored multiple times, but to work on something that significant, that historically important, that would be incredible." "Why that one?" "Because it almost didn't survive. It was stolen, pieces were scattered, people thought it was lost forever. But conservators brought it back. That's the power of this work. We give voice to things that almost disappeared." Alexander watched her intently, like people. "What?" "Some people almost disappear too. They make themselves quiet, invisible, because they think that's what's expected. But the right person can help them see their own value." Emma's breath caught. "Alexander, I'm not trying to make you uncomfortable. I just think you're remarkable. And I suspect very few people have told you that." November became December, and New York transformed into a winter wonderland. Emma found herself looking forward to each day at the penthouse, not just for the work, but for the conversations, the coffee, the unexpected moments when Alexander would share something personal and she'd find herself doing the same. One Saturday morning, Emma arrived to find Alexander waiting with an unusual proposal. "The Morgan Library is hosting a private exhibition tonight on medieval illuminated manuscripts. I have 2 tickets. Come with me." Emma hesitated. "That's not professional. You're my client." "I'm someone who enjoys your company and thinks you'd love this exhibition. Please, Emma, when was the last time you did something just for enjoyment?" She couldn't remember. "I don't have anything appropriate to wear to a private exhibition." "May I make a suggestion, without offending you?" Emma nodded warily. "I have a stylist friend, Charlotte. She's wonderful and discreet. Let her help you find something you feel confident in. Not for me, not for anyone else. For you. When was the last time you dressed up and felt beautiful?" "I don't," Emma started, then stopped. "Never. I've never felt beautiful." Alexander's expression softened. "Then it's time you did." 2 hours later, Emma found herself in an elegant boutique with Charlotte, a warm woman in her 40s who immediately put her at ease. "Alexander said you're a conservator. How fascinating," Charlotte said, pulling dresses from racks. "He also said you tend to hide your light. We're going to change that. Not by making you someone you're not, but by showing you who you already are. Emma tried on several dresses, feeling increasingly uncomfortable. They were too tight, too revealing, too much. Then Charlotte brought out a deep emerald green dress, elegant, sophisticated, with long sleeves and a neckline that was beautiful without being showy. "Try this one." Emma slipped it on and stared at her reflection. The color brought out the green in her hazel eyes. The cut emphasized her figure without making her feel exposed. She looked like herself, but somehow more. "Perfect," Charlotte said. "Now let's work on hair and makeup, just enhancing what you have." That evening, when Alexander saw Emma, his expression was worth every moment of nervousness. He stood speechless for several seconds. "You look stunning," Emma blushed. "It's just a dress." "No, it's you finally letting yourself be seen." The Morgan Library was magnificent. They wandered through the exhibition, Emma enthralled by the intricate illuminations, the gold leaf work, the centuries-old artistry. Alexander watched her more than the manuscripts. "You light up when you talk about art," he said as they stood before a particularly elaborate book of hours. "This work required years of dedication, multiple artisans, each contributing their skill. It's a testament to human patience and creativity." "Like you," Alexander said softly. Emma turned to him. "I'm just one conservator. You're a woman who brings beauty back to the world, who sees value in things others overlook, who has depths you've barely let yourself explore." The evening continued with dinner at a quiet restaurant nearby. Over wine and conversation, Emma felt something shifting inside her. A recognition that maybe Alexander was right. Maybe she had been hiding, not from malice or fear, but from a belief that she wasn't worthy of being seen. "Can I tell you something?" Emma said, surprising herself with her boldness. "Anything. These past weeks with you, they've changed how I see myself. I've spent so long believing I was only valuable for my work, that who I am wasn't enough. But when you look at me, when we talk, I feel like I matter." Alexander reached across the table, taking her hand. "You do matter, Emma, profoundly." The following weeks were a revelation. Emma continued restoring the collection, but something had shifted. She spoke more confidently in their conversations. She began dressing in clothes that made her feel good, not dramatically different, but more intentional. More herself. She even started accepting Alexander's invitations to lunches, walks through Central Park, visits to galleries. Jennifer noticed the change. "You're glowing lately. What's going on?" Emma considered the question. "I think I'm finally figuring out who I am when I'm not trying to be invisible." "Does this have anything to do with a certain duke?" Emma smiled. "Maybe." But it wasn't just about Alexander. It was about Emma discovering her own voice. She started speaking up in museum meetings, sharing her opinions on projects. She began writing a blog about art conservation, something she'd thought about for years, but never had the courage to pursue. She even called her parents and, for the first time, stood firm when they questioned her career choice. "I love what I do," she told them. "I'm good at it and it matters. I need you to respect that, even if you don't fully understand it." Duh. The conversation was difficult, but afterward, Emma felt lighter, like she'd set down a weight she'd been carrying for decades. One December evening, as snow fell outside the penthouse windows, Emma completed the restoration of Catherine's portrait. Alexander stood beside her, looking at his great-great-grandmother's face, now clear and vibrant after Emma's careful work. "She looks alive," he whispered. "She should. She was remarkable." Alexander turned to Emma. "So are you. I hope you're starting to see that." Emma met his eyes. "I'm beginning to." "Good." He hesitated, then continued. "Emma, I need to tell you something. I'm falling in love with you." Emma's breath stopped. "Alexander, I know it's complicated. I know we started as professional acquaintances. But somewhere between the coffee and the conversations, and watching you bring beauty back into the world, I fell completely in love with you. Not despite your quietness or your dedication to work, because of it, because of who you fundamentally are. Emma felt tears welling. I don't know how to be what you need. I'm not sophisticated or graceful or... You're you. That's all I've ever wanted. Christmas approached, and with it came complications Emma hadn't anticipated. Alexander's family descended on New York for the holidays, including his mother, the Dowager Duchess Margaret, his brother Edward, and a woman named Lady Victoria Pemberton, whom Alexander's mother clearly hoped would become the next Duchess of Thornbury. Emma met them at an awkward Christmas dinner. Alexander insisted she attend. She wore a simple navy dress, her hair carefully styled, but sitting across from Lady Victoria, blonde, elegant, perfectly composed, Emma felt every bit the impostor. "So, you're the conservator," Margaret said, her tone polite but cool. "Alexander speaks highly of your work." "Thank you, Your Grace. The collection is extraordinary." "Yes, well, family heritage is important. One must understand that to be part of our world." Margaret's meaning was clear. Emma didn't belong. Lady Victoria smiled sweetly. "Alexander, your mother has been telling me about the New Year's ball at the embassy. I do hope you'll save me several dances." "I'm not much for formal events anymore," Alexander replied, his hand finding Emma's under the table. The evening deteriorated. Edward was kind but formal. Margaret made pointed comments about appropriate matches and family expectations. Lady Victoria monopolized Alexander's attention, reminiscing about shared experiences in their aristocratic circle. Emma felt herself shrinking back into invisibility. After dinner, Emma slipped onto the penthouse terrace, breathing in the cold December air. Alexander found her there. "I'm sorry about that," he said, wrapping his coat around her shoulders. "My mother means well, but she's very traditional. She's protecting you, I understand." "From what? Happiness?" Emma turned to face him. "Alexander, be realistic. I'm a conservator from Ohio. You're a duke. I don't know how to navigate your world. And I never will. Your mother sees that. I don't want you to navigate my world. I want to build a new world with you. That's romantic, but it's not practical. Lady Victoria is perfect for you. She knows your society. She can handle the expectations." "Emma, look at me." Alexander cupped her face gently. "I don't want perfect. I don't want someone who fits seamlessly into a world I'm trying to leave behind. I want you. Messy, complicated, real you. The woman who talks about paintings like they're alive, who finally wore a dress that made her feel beautiful, who is discovering her own strength. What if I'm not strong enough?" "You are. You've been strong your whole life. You just expressed it through making yourself small. But now you're learning to take up space, to use your voice. Don't let my family intimidate you back into hiding." Over the following days, Emma wrestled with doubt. Margaret made her disapproval clear through small, cutting comments. Lady Victoria was always present, always reminding Emma of everything she wasn't. The museum called, offering Emma a prestigious project in Florence, 6 months away from New York, away from complications. "Are you considering it?" Alexander asked when Emma mentioned the offer. "I don't know. It's a dream opportunity." "I won't stop you from your dreams, Emma, but I hope I'm part of them too." Emma completed the final restoration, a landscape of Thornbury Hall. As she worked, Margaret entered the studio. "May I speak with you?" Emma nodded, setting down her tools. "My son is infatuated with you. I understand that. You're intelligent, dedicated, quite different from the women he usually encounters." "But," Emma prompted, "but infatuation fades. What remains is reality, social obligations, public scrutiny, expectations neither of you can escape. Alexander may think he's left that world behind, but he hasn't. He'll always be a duke, with everything that entails. Can you handle that? The judgment, the criticism, the constant comparison to what a duchess should be? Emma met Margaret's eyes. I don't know, but I do know that I love your son. Not his title, not his wealth, just him. The man who brings me coffee, who asks thoughtful questions, who encouraged me to stop hiding. Maybe I can't be the duchess you envision, but I can be someone who loves him genuinely, who sees him for who he really is. Margaret's expression softened slightly. Catherine said something similar to Alexander's great-great-grandfather. She told him she'd make a terrible duchess, but she'd make him a wonderful wife if he could accept the difference. What did he say? That wonderful wives were rarer than perfect duchesses. Margaret paused. I want my son happy, Miss Collins. I'm just not convinced you can give him that. Neither am I, Emma admitted, but I'd like the chance to try. That evening, Emma made her decision. She turned down the Florence project. When she told Alexander, he looked both relieved and concerned. I don't want you sacrificing your career for me. I'm not. I'm choosing what I want, and that's you, us, this. But Alexander, I need to be honest. I'm scared. Your world is intimidating. I don't know if I can handle the scrutiny. Then we'll face it together. Emma, I'm not asking you to be someone you're not. I'm asking you to be yourself. That's more than enough. What about your family's expectations? My brother can handle the estate. I'll maintain my connection to the title, attend necessary events, fulfill my obligations. But my life is here with you, building something real. If my family can't accept that, it's their loss. Emma kissed him, and in that moment she felt something she'd never experienced before. Complete certainty. New Year's Eve arrived with an unexpected twist. Alexander received news that his brother Edward had gotten engaged, which released significant pressure on Alexander to fulfill traditional expectations. Margaret, surprisingly, softened, perhaps recognizing that her eldest son's happiness mattered more than rigid adherence to tradition. The embassy ball was lavish. Glittering chandeliers, champagne, elegant guests in formal attire. Emma wore a stunning burgundy gown Charlotte had helped her select, and for the first time in her life she entered a room without trying to disappear. Lady Victoria approached immediately. Miss Collins, how unexpected to see you here. Alexander invited me. Yes, well, he's always been kind to his staff. Emma felt the familiar urge to shrink back, but then she remembered Catherine's portrait. The quiet confidence in that painted gaze. She straightened her shoulders. I'm not his staff. I'm the woman he loves and who loves him. I understand that doesn't fit your expectations, Lady Victoria, but it's the truth. Victoria's expression faltered. You have no idea what you're getting into. You're right, I don't, but I'm willing to learn, to adapt, to face whatever comes. Are you threatened by that? Victoria stared at her, then surprisingly laughed. Perhaps I am. You're not what I expected. Neither was I. The evening transformed into something magical. Alexander introduced Emma to everyone as simply Emma, the brilliant conservator who restored my family's collection. He never used his title to define himself, and he never let others use it to diminish her. When they danced, Emma stumbled over the formal steps. I'm terrible at this. I don't care, Alexander whispered. I only care that you're here, that you chose this, chose us. At midnight, as fireworks exploded over Manhattan, Alexander kissed Emma on the embassy terrace. When they broke apart, he pulled a small velvet box from his pocket. I know it's fast. I know it's complicated. But Emma Collins, I love you. Not because you're transforming into someone else, but because you're finally becoming fully yourself. Will you marry me? Emma's eyes filled with tears. I'm still figuring out who I am. I know. We'll figure it out together. I'll make a terrible duchess. You'll make a wonderful wife. That's all I need. Emma laughed through tears. Then yes, absolutely yes. The following months were a whirlwind. Emma continued working at the Metropolitan Museum, taking on increasingly prestigious projects. Alexander supported every choice, attending her lectures, celebrating her achievements. They married in a small ceremony at the museum, surrounded by art and close friends. No aristocratic fanfare, just genuine love. Margaret attended, and afterward she pulled Emma aside. Catherine was right. Wonderful wives are rarer than perfect duchesses. Take care of my son. I will. And your grace, thank you for giving me a chance. You earned it. You stood your ground, found your voice. That takes courage. Emma and Alexander built a life that honored both their worlds, his aristocratic heritage and her artistic passion. They split time between New York and brief visits to Thornbury Hall. Emma learned to navigate formal events with increasing confidence, while Alexander continued supporting her career unconditionally. 1 year later, Emma curated an exhibition on art conservation at the Metropolitan Museum. The opening night was packed with collectors, scholars, and journalists, as Emma gave her keynote speech, explaining the philosophy behind restoration work. Alexander watched from the audience with undisguised pride. Conservation is about seeing value others overlook, Emma said, her voice steady and clear. It's about believing that beauty exists even under layers of damage and neglect. It's about patient work to reveal what was always there, waiting to be recognized. She paused, finding Alexander's eyes in the crowd. Sometimes people are like paintings. They hide their true selves under layers of protection, believing they're not worthy of being fully seen. But the right person, the right circumstances, can help them see their own value. That's what restoration really is, helping something become its truest, most vibrant self. After the speech, as guests mingled and celebrated, Alexander pulled Emma into a quiet gallery corner. You were magnificent. I was terrified. But you did it anyway. That's courage, Emma. She smiled, thinking about the quiet Ohio girl who once believed her only value was in being invisible. I've learned something this year. What's that? That inner beauty isn't about being perfect or fitting expectations. It's about being authentically yourself, using your voice, taking up space. It's about recognizing your own worth and refusing to diminish it for anyone's comfort. Look at you, being all wise and philosophical. Emma laughed. I had a good teacher, a duke who saw me when I couldn't see myself. Wrong, Alexander said gently. You already had everything inside you. I just reminded you to look. As they walked through the museum hand in hand, Emma glanced at the restored portraits on the walls, each one brought back to life through patient, careful work. She thought about her own restoration, the slow process of uncovering her authentic self, of learning that she was worthy exactly as she was. Her inner beauty hadn't transformed her life. It had always been there, but learning to recognize it, embrace it, and let it shine had changed everything. And loving someone who saw that beauty, who celebrated it rather than diminishing it, had helped her become the woman she was always meant to be, not invisible, not small, just Emma, fully, authentically, brilliantly herself. And that was more than enough.